I never imagined I'd find love in the hands of a poor mechanic who saved me in my darkest hour. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The storm raged outside, pouring down as if the sky itself was mourning. I stood there in the dim light of my apartment, my heart racing. I could feel the walls closing in, the silence deafening. My chest tightened as I stared at the eviction notice pinned to the door. The fear clawed at my insides. I wasn't just losing my home, I was losing my grip on everything. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. I hesitated, knowing her words would only echo my shame. "You need to get it together," she'd say. I silenced the phone, and that simple act of defiance sent a shiver down my spine. Right then, I felt worlds away from her expectations, like a sinking ship desperately trying to stay afloat. I stepped outside, seeking solace in the chaos of the streets slick with rain. The air was thick with the scent of wet asphalt, and the distant sounds of sirens filled the night. I didn't know where to go, what to do. I just walked, each step a muffled heartbeat in the storm. It was then, at that very moment of despair, I stumbled upon him, a mechanic working on a beat-up old van in a dimly lit garage. That he looked up, his eyes piercing through the fog of my worries. There was an intensity there, a flicker of something raw and real. He had grease-stained hands, dirt smudged on his cheek, but there was warmth in his smile. "You okay?" he asked, his voice easy but carrying a weight that made me pause. I could feel the lump in my throat grow. Should I pour out my soul to a stranger? As if sensing my inner turmoil, he set his tools down and stepped closer, the faint light from the garage illuminating his face. "Looks like you're carrying the weight of the world," he said. I blinked, overwhelmed. How could he see right through my mask? How could he understand this bottomless pit of despair that had been consuming me? Suddenly, electrifying pain coursed through my chest, a reminder of my crumbled hopes. I wanted to tell him everything but felt the words jammed in my throat like shattered glass. The rain must have washed away my loneliness, because for the first time in ages, I felt seen. That's when the power went out. Darkness enveloped us, leaving only the sounds of the storm pounding like an anxious heartbeat. I could hear him rummaging through the tools, cursing softly to himself. "Stay put, I got a flashlight somewhere," he said, reassuring but also a little frazzled. Then, out of the darkness, I heard him say, "There's a lot of mystery hidden here, don't you think?" It was a strange comment, hanging in the tension of the storm, leaving me reeling. What did he see in me? Why did he care? In that moment, it felt like magic, and fear all at once that I gasped as he suddenly stood right in front of me, the beam of light illuminating his features. "You're not alone if you don't want to be," he said, his voice low. My heart raced. Questions flooded my mind, swirling in the dark like the rain outside. Who was this man? Was he truly someone I could lean on? What happened next would change everything. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The flickering light from the flashlight danced between us, illuminating the unsteady bridge being built in that moment. His words lingered in the air, hanging like raindrops on the edge of a leaf, fragile yet laden with promise. How could I respond? I stood, anchored in uncertainty, grappling with the uncharted territory of vulnerability. "Why do you care?" I managed, my voice a whisper against the roar of the storm outside. "Because everyone deserves someone in their corner," he replied, his eyes reflecting the sincerity of his statement. "You don't need to be brave all the time. It's okay not to have all the answers." His honesty felt like a balm against my fraying edges, a reassurance that for a fleeting moment, I was enough just as I was that I opened my mouth but no words came. Instead, I turned to look outside. The rain was relentless, beads of water tumbling down the window like lost dreams. The storm outside mirrored the storm within me, chaotic, heavy, and desperate for reprieve. But standing before this man, there was a spark of something different, a fleeting hope trying to break through my internal tempest. "Your name?" I asked, suddenly keen to know more about the one who stood so resolutely in the dark with me. "Jake," he said, as if the simple declaration held weight in this obscured moment. "And you?" "Lily." "Like the flower," he said, a hint of warmth creeping into his tone. "Delicate but resilient." The compliment surprised me, and for a moment, my defenses softened in the light of his kindness. But just as quickly, the heaviness of reality crashed back. "I can't let you in," I said, the truth cutting deep. "I'm a mess. I can't even help myself right now." Jake stepped closer, the flashlight flickering, casting shadows that danced on the garage walls. "Everyone has their battles, Lily. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean you have to face it alone." The sincerity in his gaze made my chest tight once again. Why did it feel so safe to stand here with him? In the depths of my despair, I hadn't expected a stranger to reach out with such empathy. I looked down, tracing the pattern of the concrete floor, fighting to dissipate the urge to cry. "I'm about to lose everything. I'm about to lose myself," I breathed, a confession igniting the air between us. Before he could respond, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, jolting me back to reality. My heart dropped when I saw my mother's name flashing on the screen. Panic shot through me. I couldn't face her tonight, couldn't handle her disappointment, her demands. "I need to go," I said, though my legs felt heavy with the weight of impending sorrow. "Are you sure?" Jake asked, concern etched across his face. "It's pouring out there, you can stay here." I hesitated, torn between the comfort of his offer and the anxiety bubbling within. "I can't stay here, Jake. I don't belong here." His expression softened. "You do belong, in your own way. Just give yourself a chance." There was something in his voice, a gentle insistence that wrapped around me, held me skyward amidst the deluge, but I couldn't breathe under expectations. I couldn't allow myself to cling to hope, not when it felt so far from reach. "What if I'm too broken?" I murmured, not fully realizing I had spoken my deepest fear aloud. "What if you're exactly what this world needs?" He replied, unwavering. His words ignited a fire of uncertainty in my belly, mixing with both hope and dread. That a loud crash of thunder echoed, and I took an instinctive step back, my heart racing at the cacophony that surrounded us. Out there in the storm, my world awaited, dark, stormy, and overwhelming. And yet, with Jake standing there, I felt unmoored, yet anchored in vulnerability. As I turned to leave, that flicker of hope ignited one last time. "Thank you, Jake," I whispered, voicing what my heart had been yearning to say. But as I stepped out into the rain, the ground shook beneath me. Sirens wailed nearby, sending an icy chill of anxiety through my veins. Something felt wrong. Suddenly, my phone rang again, demanding my attention. Against the cacophony of the storm, I answered, shivering at the familiar voice on the other end. "Lily," my mother said, her tone sharper than I remembered, "we need to talk. There's something you need to know, it can't wait." A knot formed in my stomach as I heard the urgency in her voice, and I knew that the storm was only just beginning. As I stepped out into the downpour, the water hit my skin like needles, sharp and unrelenting. Each drop felt like a harsh reminder of the reality I was running back to, a life filled with demands and expectations. My heart raced, matching the rhythm of the raindrops that pelted my shoulders. I didn't glance back at Jake, though the urge was overwhelming. His presence felt like a safe harbor, and I was terrified that if I looked back, I might drown in the allure of his kindness. "Hurry home, Lily," I whispered to myself, even as the storm howled in response. I couldn't let him see the truth of my struggle, I couldn't let anyone see. I fought against the urge to pick up the pace, my feet squelching in puddles as I navigated the uneven ground. The storm raged ahead, but it was my mother's voice that echoed in my mind. I could hear the way her words would cut, the disappointment dripping from every syllable. She had been so adamant that my life fit her mold, but even now, standing soaked to the bone, I could not pretend to be someone else. I would have to face her and the reality of what lay ahead. As I rounded the corner to my childhood home, the glow of the porch light pierced through the darkness, but it was more of a beacon of dreaded obligation than warmth. I hesitated on the steps, heart clenching. A part of me wished I could still be in that garage, lost in conversation with Jake, discovering fragments of myself amidst shared vulnerability. But here, I felt only the weight of the storm. Lily. The sharpness of my mother's voice cut through the air as I stepped inside. Her arms crossed tightly like an iron fence, her face a storm cloud of agitation. How many times do I have to call? I'm sorry, I said, shivering as I shrugged off my soaked jacket. Despite the warmth of the home, an icy knot lingered where my heart should have been. I thought I would come back after the storm passed. We need to discuss your future, she said, storming into the kitchen without waiting for a response. My heart sank deeper with every word. This can't wait. Do you even understand how serious it is? I followed her into the kitchen, my wet feet leaving puddles on the tiled floor. She was already rifling through papers, her brow furrowed with concern that I knew wasn't for my well-being, but for the image we were supposed to uphold. The image of a perfect family, a perfect daughter. What is it, Mom? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I've had a long night. It's about your father, she said, finally turning to look at me. He has been asking for you. He wants to meet. He says he has something important to tell you. The mention of my father brought everything to a halt. The wounds of his absence flared back to life, raw and jagged. Meet? I stammered, confusion washing over me like the rain outside. After all this time, he chooses now. It's not just a casual meeting, Lily. He insists it's urgent. She slammed her hand on the table, rattling the carefully arranged papers. You need to make a decision. Do you want to see him or not? The words felt like daggers in my chest, twisting painfully with each syllable. I felt lost amidst the swirl of emotions. The man who had walked away from us, who had left my mother to pick up the pieces alone, now wanted a connection again. I don't know what to say, I said, my voice faltering. Say yes, she urged, her tone softening for a flicker of a moment. It might be a chance for closure, to understand why he left. A chance for closure? How could I close a door I had never opened? Just then, my phone buzzed, the name Jake appearing on the screen, a lifeline amidst a storm of chaos. Part of me wanted to retreat back to the sanctuary of his gentle presence. Another part was deeply rooted in the turmoil here, faced with the reality of my father's return and my mother's expectations. Just take some time to think about it, my mother said, her voice no longer demanding but tinged with desperation. You need to be prepared for what he might say. With that, I moved out of the kitchen, pressing my back against the cool wall of the hallway, feeling the pressure of decision begin to build inside me like the storm outside. I couldn't shake the thought of Jake. Would he understand this chaos? Would he still inspire hope? But the buzzing of the phone snapped my mind back to the present. I swiped the screen, finally allowing myself to answer. Jake. Lily, his voice cut through the air like a warm breeze from a sunlit garden. I was worried about you. Are you okay? I swallowed hard, emotion struggling to break free. I'm still standing, I said, faltering. We talked about vulnerability earlier, remember? I meant it when I said it's okay to lean on someone. I just got news about my father, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. He wants to meet, and I don't know how to deal with all of this. Lily, listen, he said, his voice grounding. You don't have to figure it all out right now. Just take a breath and be honest with yourself first. A distant sound chimed in the background, the ringing of a bell or a message alert, punctuating our exchange with urgency. "What is that?" I asked, heart racing. "It's just the sound of my phone," he said, hesitance creeping into his tone. "But it can wait." "Jake," I stopped, my pulse quickening as I heard another knock, louder and more insistent this time, echoing from the back door. My stomach twisted in a knot of unease. "Do you want to meet?" "Meet me?" "Like myself and—" But before I could finish, the loud bang of the door burst open as the storm pattered in with a vengeance. There stood a figure, drenched and breathless, silhouetted against the tempest this time. The unexpected storm was not just outside but right at my doorstep. Suddenly, my heart plummeted as I recognized the face. I hadn't seen him in years, hadn't wanted to. My world felt shattered and reconstructed in the blink of an eye, leaving me gasping for the words to comprehend. The storm within me rose again, and I knew in that moment, everything was about to change. I stood frozen, the echo of the storm colliding with the chaos in my heart. The figure before me was drenched, but it wasn't the rainwater that chilled me, it was the realization of who had come crashing back into my life. "Dad?" My voice trembled, caught between shock and a sliver of something else, an uninvited hope. The familiar outline of my father stared back at me, his features now older, marked by time and regret. For a long moment, we stood separated by layers of unspoken history, the weight palpable between us. "Lily," he said, his voice hoarse and strained, as if breaking the silence had taken every ounce of strength he had. His eyes, once so cold and distant, shimmered with the glare of desperation and regret. Behind me, I sensed my mother's presence drift into the room, her footsteps echoing against the tiled floor. The heavy air around us thickened, suffocating us all in a cocoon of unresolved emotions. "What is he doing here?" she hissed, her fury barely contained. "Mom, please," I pleaded, my heart pounding in my chest. "Just give us a minute." The wild drumming of the rain masked the mounting tension between us. "I need to talk to you," my father interrupted, his voice steadying slightly. "I know it's been years, but I've come to explain, to apologize." "Apologize?" My laughter was bitter, echoing around the room. "After everything? You just pop back into our lives with an apology?" The heat rushed to my face, and suddenly I was that little girl again, crying for a father who had walked out on me, but there was something else tugging at my heart. Somewhere deep within was a flicker of longing, a desperate wish to understand why he'd left, why he hadn't chased after me that day. "Why now?" I asked, my voice softer, cracking under the sheer weight of grief and resentment that he stepped closer, wiping the water from his brow. "I've spent years regretting my choices." His voice faltered, and I saw the struggle etched across his face. "Some things have changed. I was sick, and it made me realize how important family is. I can't let the past define me anymore. Or you." My father's admission hovered heavily in the air. His absence had reshaped my life, and yet, here he stood, the possibility of a future stretching between us like a tightrope. How could I even begin to navigate the thin line between anger and hope? "Lily, perhaps we can all sit down together," my mother interjected, desperation edging her tone. "We need to have this conversation as a family." I turned to her, searching her face for understanding, finding only the reflection of her fears. "Family? After everything?" The disbelief colored my words as I weighed my emotions. I had spent years carrying their weight alone. Would this sudden return of my father transform the past? Or would it bury me deeper in it? I felt my phone buzz again, but I ignored it. My focus was split between my parents and the undeniable urge to reach out to Jake, who always seemed to know what to say when everything felt impossible. The worry in his voice still echoed in my mind. Lean on someone. But could I trust anyone again? "I get that this is overwhelming," my father continued, his voice wavering as he nervously ran a hand through his hair. "But everything I've done, the choices I made, they were wrong. I want a chance to make things right. I don't even know if I want you in my life." I snapped, the dam of emotions bursting. You can't just come back and expect forgiveness. I don't expect it, he declared, his voice breaking slightly. I'm just asking for a chance to explain. A part of me wanted to scream, to rage against the injustices of the past and how they had shaped me. But there was also a flicker of curiosity stirring inside. What could he possibly say that would change the years of anguish? And what was it worth? The room was heavy with a longing for connection, and I felt myself wavering. My heart echoed the chaotic pulse of the rain on the windows, reflecting the internal storm brewing with every heartbeat. You want to talk? I murmured, glancing back at my mother who stood tense and uncertain. Then talk. Before he could answer, my phone buzzed again, insistent. My heart raced not for the words I thought might spill from my father's lips, but for the connection I craved from Jake. I thought of how safe I felt in his garage, under his quiet understanding. Lily. My father stepped forward again, his eyes searching mine, desperate for acceptance. Please, but the sound of a notification cut through, and I glanced down at my phone, seeing Jake's name light up the screen once more, followed by an unexpected message. I'm just outside. I heard the storm and needed to be sure you're okay. My heart thudded heavily in my chest as I met my father's gaze. Everything felt as if it were teetering on a precipice, and just then, another knock echoed through the hall, urgent and insistent. I needed to choose, a decision loomed before me like the storm, tumultuous and intense. Would I face the past, a path I thought I'd buried? Or would I open the door to Jake, the one who had stood steadfast even from a distance? In that moment, cradled in the weight of all I'd faced, a decision was thrust upon me. I had no idea what awaited on the other side of either choice. The storm pulsed with energy and confusion, and I knew my life would never be the same, no matter who I chose to welcome in. I turned my back on the door, heart racing at the possibility of Jake standing there. The storm outside raged on, its fury pressing down like the weight of years spent in silence and sorrow. Each breath felt like a battle, fragmented as I faced the man who used to be my father, whose presence dredged up more questions than answers. Lily. My father's voice pulled me back, soft yet heavy with emotion. I want you to know that I'm not expecting anything from you. I just need you to listen. As I met his gaze again, I felt a spark of that little girl who had watched him leave, a flicker of the bond one had desperately longed to claim. Listen. To what? I spat, though the fire in my eyes began to fade. To those same excuses that I've heard whispered and thrown around like debris in a storm. I understand that you're angry, he replied, his own eyes glistening. Trust me, I lived with that anger, too, every single day. He paused, as if bracing for the impact of his next words. But it's not just anger anymore, it's regret. I've had time to think. Time to understand the pain I caused. I want to be better for you. I sensed the sincerity wrapped within his plea, yet my heart remained cautious, shattered by years of absence. You had your chance to be better, and you walked away. I let the words tumble out, raw and trembling. You lost the right to ask for a second chance the moment you decided to leave. I know, he said, voice breaking as his emotions surfaced. But I need you to know that I've changed. I no longer just exist in my own world, I want to be a part of yours again. When I was sick a few years back I realized how fragile life really is. It made me see the things I had taken for granted, especially you. The vulnerability in his confession struck a chord deep within me. It was a mixture of sorrow and something else, faint traces of hope that glimmered like distant stars in a darkened sky. I took a moment, feeling the pull between the ugly truth of my childhood and the possibility of forgiveness rippling beneath the surface. Behind me, my mother shifted, breaking the uneasy silence. I need you to understand, Lily, that this is just as hard for me, she said, her voice steady yet unnerved. I've held our family together, watching everything unravel, and now I feel unsettled. Unsettled? I challenged, my voice rising. You got to choose. You didn't carry the weight on your shoulders alone. Neither did he, she shot back, an unexpected edge in her tone. You don't know the sacrifices he made to protect you both. He thought leaving was for the best. And look where we are now. My voice held a wretched mix of hurt and disbelief. He chose to run, Mom. That's not protecting, it's abandoning. I could feel the tension electrifying the air around us, the room transformed into a battleground with every word spoken. But beyond the rage, a flicker of understanding glimmered in my heart. Above all, I felt the need to protect my world, to stand tall against the storm brewing both inside my home and within my own heart. Another knock resounded, followed by a sudden blur of memories: Jake's laughter, our late-night talks, those stolen glances when he thought I didn't notice. I regretted dismissing him now, feeling so fiercely alone. Perhaps he would remind me of the light. I stole another glance at the door, then back at my father, fighting the emotional wreckage storming within. The irony of the life I had shaped, where every moment felt downcast, was eerily mirrored in the tempest raging outside. Just give me a moment, I murmured, more to myself than anyone else. I turned to the door, instinct allowing my hand to reach for the knob. In that pivotal moment, while I wasn't even sure if I wanted to embrace the past or leap into the unknown, I tried to untie the knot that bound my heart, but just as I was about to turn the knob, the door burst open to reveal Jake, soaked from the rain, breathing heavily, concern etched on his face. The moment felt unreal, a grounded force entering my chaotic world, immediately colliding with the broken edges of my family. Lily, he halted, taking in the storm inside the room and the three of us framed like a chaotic tableau. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. His gaze shifted to meet mine, deep and unflinching, connecting the dots of unspoken support. Caught in the tension of the moment, I faced a burning decision: to forge a path to the past over which my heart ached, or to step forward into the present, perhaps into something bright and unknown. A quiet part of me yearned to reach for Jake, sensing the security he could provide amid my parents' tumultuous sea. As genuine warmth washed over him, the air was thick like the storm outside, a clarity rising even in the chaos. I had hoped for answers, but in the span of a heartbeat, I felt more lost than ever, a mix of uncertainty tugging at me, time warping as each figure around me shifted with a palpable weight. The storm roared, mirroring my heart, as the choice loomed, waiting for me to make it: would I face the remnants of my past today, or would I reach for the fragile dream blooming in the present? The weight of the room shifted again, all eyes on Jake as he stood frozen, the door behind him a portal to another world, one that felt simpler, yet infinitely distant from the chaos that now surrounded me. I could feel the heartbeat of the storm outside echoing inside my chest, the thunder booming like the hidden tumult of feelings I had for Jake, tainted with urgency and tangled with the history of my family. What are you doing here? My voice came out sharper than I intended, carrying a mix of relief and frustration. I just wanted to check in on you. Jake's eyes flickered to my parents, their unwelcome presence an unspoken challenge. I didn't think you'd want to be alone right now, he added, uncertainty creeping into his voice. The breath I had been holding broke free, torn between gratitude for Jake's untimely yet welcome interruption and the undeniable turmoil that simmered beneath my skin. I felt anchored yet adrift, as if I were being pulled under by the undertow. I'm not alone, I challenged lightly, but desperation tinged my words. Lily, can we talk? My father's voice cut through the tension, raw and pleading. This isn't just about you and me. It's about everything, what we lost, what we can still find. I only need a moment. Jake's brows furrowed, he stepped further into my personal storm, closer to the emotional nexus I stood at. Is this about him? The edge of his voice hinted at concern wrapped in protectiveness, his presence both grounding and entangled with unspoken thoughts of trust and vulnerability. Is he threatening you? No. I felt a sudden surge of fervor in my heart, desperately wanting to defend my father despite the hurt he had caused. He needs to talk, Jake. It's complicated. It always is, Jake replied, the hurt sliding through his crackling tone like a fine mist. I get it, I do. But you think you're protecting yourself by holding on to all this pain, and I'm questioning how much more you can take. My heart clenched as the truth of his words wove through me. Each pulse echoed with memories I wanted to bury yet desperately sought articulation. Jake had been a gentle lighthouse amid my tempest, yet here I was, drowning in the expectations of bittersweet forgiveness and fearing what new wounds might arise. "Jake," I began, heart thundering, "I don't know if I can do this right now. I feel like I paused, grappling for clarity, I'm too lost to even pick a path. Do you understand?" His eyes softened, gleaming with compassion that swept through the room like a quiet breath. "All I ask is that you don't shut me out. You don't have to go through any of this alone." From behind me, my mother whispered, "Lily, let him stay. He's right in ways we can't even begin to fathom." "That's easy for you to say," I shot back, barely aware of the sound of my own voice. "You don't know what it feels like to live our life. To have that shadow over you all these years." Silence filled the room, and for a fleeting moment, the storm outside softened its grip. Jake took a step closer, standing resolutely beside me as if inviting me to take this chaotic moment and turn it somehow into a shard of hope. "But you can change that," he urged gently, "it's your story, Lily. You hold the pen." A bittersweet sweetness blossomed amidst the ache. It was someone reaching through my sorrow. I felt the gentle tug in my chest, like the first rays of dawn breaking through the endless gloom. I longed to wrap myself in that warmth, yet the shadows of my past were vivid and loud. Once more, my father's voice cut through, filled with raw emotion. "I'm sorry I couldn't be the father you needed," he said, each word imbued with the jagged edges of regret. "I'm here now, and this time I'm choosing to fight for you. I want to learn and rebuild what has been lost." I took a shaky breath, the walls that had once stood like fortresses crumbling around me. I felt yearning wrapped in fear. What if this was genuine? What if it was all just a ploy to sedate the guilt through sweet words? The uncertainty gnawed at me. Just then, another flash of lightning illuminated the room, casting fleeting shadows across my father's stricken face and Jake's resolved expression. It felt like the darkness was scraping against the edge of a larger revelation, one I wasn't ready to confront. "Can we not do this now? Please?" I blurted, the rush of raw emotions pushing me toward a cliff I felt unprepared to leap from. "I just need time to understand what is happening." The room went silent, a shared understanding knitting us closer for the briefest moment. Jake's hand slipped gently over mine, offering warmth amidst the raging storm. I had a decision to make, not just about my future but about all of us and the shadows looming large over our hearts. "Stay," I whispered, more to him than to anyone else. "Just stay while I figure this out." With that, a sense of fierce determination ignited within me, fresh hopes mingling with old wounds, ready to confront whatever storm awaited. But beneath the surface of my resolve lingered an unwavering question: could I really forgive? And even more hauntingly, what heartbreaking truths lay hidden beneath the family facade I had so desperately sought to understand? Outside, the storm surged anew, hinting that the real tempest had yet to break. The storm raged outside, but inside, a different kind of tumult was brewing. Jake's hand against mine felt like a lifeline, but the weight of my father's gaze pulled me back into a swirling sea of uncertainty. I could feel the ripples of old pain surging at the edges of my thoughts, threatening to drag me under once more. Moments hung like heavy raindrops in the air. I stared at my father, searching his face for any hints of deception. The corners of his mouth quivered, and as I studied him, a wave of memories surged forward: the laughter of simpler times, the arguments that tore us apart, the silence that followed. Each snapshot flickered in my mind, a frantic montage of before. "I just want to understand why you left," I whispered, vulnerability piercing through the tension. His brow furrowed, and pain flickered in his eyes. "It was never about you, Lily. It was my own demons that drove me away," he said, his voice almost cracking, the weight of sins past hanging heavily on his words. "I thought distance would free you from my mistakes. And you thought that would make everything better." Anger ignited within me, weaving through the deep fissures of my heart. "You left me to pick up the pieces alone." My voice shook, the truth spilling forth like rain cascading against glass. Jake squeezed my hand more tightly, his quiet presence both grounding and empowering. I could feel our connection intensifying, a protective cocoon amid the chaos we were surrounded by. I'll never forgive you if you're just here to appease your guilt. My voice wavered, but I stood my ground, my heart racing as I felt the unrelenting surge of self-preservation. No. Please, listen. My father's voice raised, desperation skimming just below the surface. I've fought to become a better man, one who deserves a place in your life. I want to be here, showing up, trying to mend the broken pieces no matter how long it takes. Both of my parents were riddled with their mistakes, their regrets sharp and glaring against the backdrop of our shared history. I recalled the countless times my mother had cried behind closed doors, her walls a fragile mask of strength built on loss and sadness. My heart twisted at the thought of it, the weight of their struggles resting uneasily on my young shoulders, all those years spent feeling forgotten, and now. Here they were, reaching out amidst the wreckage, each carrying their own burdens. Jake's warmth contrasted my parents' chill, his face set in a mixture of concern and determination. Lily, Jake murmured, his voice low and soothing, rediscovering trust takes time. It's okay to pause, to not have immediate answers. You're allowed to feel everything you're feeling. His words dripped with an understanding that stoked the flickering flame inside me, lighting a path towards something more than compliance. But running parallel to that flame was the dark shadow of doubt. Could I truly trust them? Could I trust myself? Driven by my fears, I raised my eyes to meet my father's imploring gaze. What exactly are you prepared to do to earn that trust? It was a challenge, sharp and piercing, demanding honesty. I'll do anything. Volunteer at the shelter, put myself in uncomfortable situations to learn and be better for you. His voice grew more impassioned. I'll let you choose the pace, Lily. I don't want to rush you, but know that I will do the work for you, for us. A soft rumble echoed outside, a mirror to the turbulence within. Hope and skepticism danced together in my chest, interlacing their delicate threads. A distant part of my heart longed for the family we might become, while another part feared the backslide into old darkness. And what about Mom? I turned my attention to her, expecting a defense. Instead, she appeared worn, a shadow of the vibrant woman I once knew. I'm ready to listen, really listen, to what you need. I can change, too, she said, tears shimmering in her eyes. I just need the chance to show you that love isn't always shown perfectly. The words hung heavy in the air, the promise of transformation laced with a fragrance of fragility. The storm rumbled again, and I closed my eyes, feeling the rain against the roof, a drumming heartbeat echoing my uncertainty. Yes, I started, but was interrupted by a thunderclap that shook the walls. The lights flickered and then dimmed, the room plunging into a surreal darkness. Panic flickered at the corners of my mind, shadows tugging at my fears, adding weight to the tense atmosphere. I'm right here. Jake's voice broke the silence, rich with warmth, a beacon amid the dark. I could feel him shifting closer, the space between us no longer just a physical distance but a chasm steeped in pain and boundaries. I don't know if I can take the risk, I whispered, clutching his hand tighter. There's so much history, our past isn't just going to disappear because you're trying now. As if summoned by my trepidation, a sudden flash of lightning illuminated the room, revealing an unexpected face hovering in the doorway. A shadowed figure stood silhouetted against the storm, a stranger with tangled hair and eyes alight with desperation that I blinked as the storm outside faded momentarily, encapsulating a moment that felt frozen in time. The figure's voice pierced through, a haunting echo of familiarity, and whispered words that sent chills racing down my spine. You don't know everything, do you, Lily? Caught between yearning for resolution and a revelation that reshaped my entire world, I felt every heartbeat reverberate against the thick curtain of uncertainty. What could this stranger possibly reveal that would cast our fragile new beginnings further into doubt? The moment hung in the air like the heavy breaths before a storm charged with possibility and dread. I felt the world around me narrow, the figure mere inches away yet shrouded in layers of confusion. My heart raced, each beat a drum calling for answers long buried and forgotten. Lily, the stranger repeated, as if tasting my name. You deserve to know the truth about your father, about what really happened. His voice, gravelly and intimate, pulled me in as each word wrapped around the remnants of my resolve. As if sensing the shift, my father stepped forward, his face flushing with a mix of anger and fear. "Who are you? What do you think you know?" His words sliced through the fragile space I had allowed to open, threatening to close it once more. The stranger laughed, a bitter sound that didn't quite fit the moment. "You think you've played the role of the good man, don't you? But you've been living a lie for too long." He took a step closer, defiance sparking in his eyes. "And she deserves better than your shadows." Jake's grip on my hand tightened. I felt his warmth radiate through me, the only warmth I could still cling to in this earthquake of emotions. I turned to him, seeking an anchor in this wild unrest. And then I found my voice, fragile yet determined. "What truth? What are you talking about?" The words barely broke free, but they held a steeliness that surprised me. The figure took a deep breath, his hands held out as if trying to calm the whirlwind around us. "I'm here because I know things, Lily. Secrets that have kept your family in chains. And they're bigger than just your father's mistakes. They begin with something darker." I felt my stomach drop at his words, the promise of anguish and revelation blooming 1,000 butterflies within me. In that moment, I wrestled with both fear and curiosity. Did I truly want to uncover the roots of our pain? "What are you saying?" "I know how he left. Why he left." The stranger's eyes bored into mine. "And who he left behind." My father recoiled, shaking his head vehemently as if trying to shake off the weight of the truth. "No. You don't get to come here and spin your lies. This isn't about you. Then who is it about, Sam?" The word hung in the air like an executioner's blade. "Isn't it time to stop pretending the past doesn't exist? To stop pretending that your choices didn't ripple out to more than just you?" The air was electric, a thunderous silence pounding around us as everyone seemed to hold their breath. My mother's fingers trembled, and a tear slipped down her cheek, catching the light before cascading into shadows. Jake squeezed my hand again, grounding me against the tempest. "Your brother," the stranger breathed, his voice quaking with a mixture of sorrow and rage. "He was taken from you, and you never got to know him. And that truth, the one you think protects, only chains you further. It changed everything." The echo of the stranger's words shattered my resolve. "Brother?" I felt the ground shift beneath me, my heart plummeting into depths I never thought possible. "What are you talking about?" I gasped, the weight of his revelation slamming against the walls I had built with years of pain. "After your father left, there was always someone missing. And no one ever had the courage to tell you until now." I felt the breath catch in my throat, the walls closing in as I turned back to my father, searching for any sliver of denial in his eyes. But they shimmered with an agony I had never before seen, unguarded and raw. "No, that's not true," I whispered, panic crashing over me like the storm outside. I could feel the threads of my heart unraveling as pieces of my life began to snap into place. "I couldn't have a brother. How could no one have told me?" Jake's hand felt like a lifeline slipping through the storm, and I grasped it tighter, drowning in the enormity of reality unspooling before my eyes. "What else haven't I been told?" I hissed, her voice quaking with disbelief and anger. A thunderclap echoed outside, drowning out the heavy silence that enveloped the room. The tension was suffocating, each unsaid truth hanging in the air like a curse, and just like that, as if sensing my urgency, the stranger looked away for a moment. Upon returning his gaze to mine, I could see something meaningful flicker in his eyes, something that held the promise of hope masked inside despair. "You're not alone, Lily. You never were. That's why I'm here, to help you find out everything about him, about your family." And as those words sunk into my chest, igniting a possible spark of trust among this chaos, I realized that the family I thought I had might be far more complicated, and my search for love was just beginning. My heart hammered against my ribs, desperate for resolution as the cacophony of the storm blurred the lines between fear and determination. And in that heartbeat of silence, where the storm met the fractured human heart, I knew one thing: nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed were a blur of emotions that twisted and turned within me, each moment heavy with unanswered questions. Echoes of the stranger's revelations haunted my waking hours, weaving through my thoughts like a relentless current, pulling me deeper into a sea of confusion and anger. There were glimpses of hope too, unforeseen shards of light that were both comforting and cruel, like the warmth of Jake's hand firmly clasped in mine as we navigated through this storm together. That I found myself sitting on the old swing in our yard one evening, the wood creaking softly as I leaned back and gazed up at the storm-swept sky. It was a reminder of how chaotic my life had become. The world, once familiar and gentle, now looked monstrous with endless storm clouds swirling above. Only a few days had passed since that night, and yet it felt like a lifetime. My father had retreated into the shadows, his silence an impenetrable fortress that left me feeling more lost than ever. And as for my mother, her spirit seemed dulled, like a withered flower that had lost its chance to bloom, but Jake, he was my solace, my beacon in the unforgiving dark. He spent hours with me, holding my hand, whispering sweet nothings of understanding and assurance. While he couldn't take away the pain, he reminded me of the warmth humanity could offer in times of despair. One evening, as the first stars began to twinkle above, he brought me a small bouquet of wildflowers he picked from the edge of the woods. "You know, the most beautiful things often grow where you least expect them," he said softly, brushing a stray tear from my cheek. That it was moments like that, however fleeting, that gave me the strength to confront the looming storm within. Yet, the unanswered questions persistently gnawed at my resolve. What had really happened to my brother? Why hadn't my parents ever spoken of him? Did they fear the pain, or was it simply easier to forget? But with each question came the stranger's promise: "You're not alone, Lily. You never were." Those words echoed in my mind, feeding my determination to uncover the truth. Swirling thoughts led me to the one person who could provide answers beyond what had already been unveiled, my mother. One quiet afternoon, I decided to break through the barrier of silence. With Jake's hand reassuringly clasped in mine, I approached her in the living room. She sat on the couch, staring at an old photo album opened on her lap, perhaps searching for solace among memories. The sight tugged at my heartstrings. "Mom," I said softly, my voice trembling with uncertainty. "Can we talk? About my brother?" Her eyes, once vibrant and full of life, glistened with a sadness that felt like shards of glass cutting through my soul. "Oh, Lily," she whispered, her voice heavy with an unspoken burden. I didn't think you'd ever ask." As she began to speak, every word felt like an incantation, summoning the spirits of a past long buried. She spoke of a cold winter day, one I had come to learn was the darkest hour of her life. "We lost him, Lily. It was like losing a part of myself, the part one never got to hold or nurture. And I didn't want to relive the pain by telling you," she said, her hands trembling. "Why didn't you tell me?" I demanded, the weight of betrayal both aching and freeing within me. "Why did you choose to keep me in the dark?" She paused, as if searching for the words that had evaded her for years. "I thought I was protecting you. I thought you would be happier, safer if I shielded you from that sorrow. But I see now it was the wrong choice." Her gaze fell to the ground, and the tears streamed down her cheeks, pooling on the unread pages of our family history. That I felt all the agony converging within me, a cocktail of anger, sadness, and most unexpectedly compassion for my mother, a woman stripped of parts of her own identity. "But I deserve to know." I cried out, the emotion spilling forth like a dam breaking. In that moment, I understood that unveiling this truth did not solely rest upon my shoulders, it was an inheritance passed down from generations of silence and withheld grief. I wasn't just seeking closure for myself, I was urging my family to confront their own demons, to acknowledge the love and pain that had forever altered our course. Just as she steadied her resolve to answer me, the sudden sound of a loud crash outside jolted us both into silence. My heart leaped, a premonition unraveling within me. Jake rushed to the window, looking out into the darkening world outside as rain began to pound against the glass. "Lily," he called suddenly, the urgency in his voice molding fear into stark reality. "It's him, the stranger." He back. My heart dropped. I barely had a grasp on the former revelations, and now the chaos at my door threatened to unravel everything I had begun to understand. All the questions I still needed answered hung heavy in the air, and as I stood there, my mother's hand clasped within mine, Jake beside me, I felt the storm looming closer. Was this stranger our ally, or something more sinister? And with the truth just within reach, what new secrets would he unveil that could change our lives forever? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever awaited us, ready to confront the storm that had settled over our lives, and hoping against hope that maybe, just maybe, it would lead to the light I so desperately sought. The thunder cracked outside like a whip, and my heart raced as I took a step toward the door. Jake stood alert, his posture tense as if guarding against whatever chaos lurked beyond. I could feel the weight of my mother's gaze, heavy with unshed tears, anchoring me to this moment. "What do you want?" I called into the tumult outside, voice stronger than I felt, hoping it would give me the power I craved. The shadows shifted, and the stranger emerged from the storm, water dripping from his disheveled hair, his face both familiar and unsettling. He was a ghost of the past, a living reminder of everything I had tried to bury. "I have to talk to you," he said, breathless, as though he had run miles through the downpour to reach us. "Please, it's important." The air was thick with tension. We stood at the precipice of something monumental, poised to either leap into the unknown or retreat into the safety of silence. "What could you possibly say that would change anything?" I challenged, heart pounding, unsure whether I wanted to hear his truths or dismiss him entirely. Without waiting for an invitation, he stepped closer, desperation radiating from him. "You deserve the truth about your family. Not just about your brother, but about the legacy of pain that has followed you all your life. Your father," he paused, searching for the right words, "he thought he was protecting you by keeping it hidden. But those secrets, they can't remain buried forever." My father flinched at the mention of secrets, his jaw tightening as he stood frozen behind my mother. The storm outside seemed to roil in response to the burgeoning chaos within our home. "Sam!" he shouted, furious, "you're crossing a line. This isn't your place anymore." "Isn't it?" The stranger fired back, a note of sorrow lacing his voice. "It might be the very thing that brings you back together. Lily has the right to know everything, the fractured history that has kept you all held hostage." I could barely take a breath, each revelation layering on more weight than I thought I could bear. My brother and the secrets surrounding his absence were the ripples in the fabric of our family's history, and now they beckoned me to confront what lay hidden beneath the surface. "What happened to him?" I demanded, feeling the full rush of anger and grief clash within me. "He was taken from you, Lily," the stranger finally said, the gravity of his words sinking like stones in my soul. "He was very young, too young to understand why bad things happen." "The fire," he faltered, and for a brief moment, I could see the sadness that etched lines into his face. "Your brother was at the wrong place during a difficult moment, and your father was there, all but helpless. They took him away." I turned to my father, the question hanging in the air unresolved. "You didn't just leave, did you?" I whispered, anguish piercing the folds of my heart. "You ran away from the truth?" He winced, the pain sculpting his features, and I could see a chasm of remorse opening up. "Lily, I thought if I hid it, if I let time weave a new story, it would soften the edges." His voice shook, I could see my mother's heartbreak reflected in his eyes. "I didn't want you to carry that burden, it killed me to think of it." "But it crushed me anyway," I snapped, fury coursing through my veins like wildfire. Every moment I spent in confusion, convincing myself it was my fault. With each word that fell from my lips, memories surged forward, long nights spent wishing, wondering why love felt so conditional. "Listen to me," the stranger implored, taking a step toward me. "The truth is not the enemy, it's what has kept your family in chains for so long." Jake squeezed my hand tighter, grounding me as I fought against the storm of emotions roiling inside. I could feel his earnestness, the raw energy surrounding him perpetuating promise amidst the chaos, and I wondered, was this my chance to break free? "Lily," he said, his voice steady, you are not responsible for the choices they made. His grip gave me courage, intertwining my memories with newfound hope. You deserve your own story. It's okay to be scared, and it's okay to feel betrayed. Just don't shut yourself off from understanding. The words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, soothing the jagged edges left raw by anger. I turned back toward my family, the reality that had haunted our lives suddenly laid bare, fragile yet compelling. No more secrets, I insisted, determination rising like the sun after a storm. No more hiding. If we have a future together, I need to know everything. Slowly, I could see the realization dawn in their eyes, the weight of my truth begging to be acknowledged. My mother nodded, tears escaping down her cheeks as she stepped closer to me. I'll tell you everything, she promised, each syllable coming with the heavy burden of sacrifice. But we need to do it together, there's no way around it. The storm continued to rage outside, but all at once, a calm settled over my heart. Here was the hope I craved, the possibility of reconnection with my parents, giving them a chance to redeem themselves in the wake of our shared tragedy. The stranger watched with an expression I couldn't quite understand, but I felt no fear. He was a healer of sorts, and I somehow trusted him with my heart that I inhaled deeply, ready to open the door to both the shadows and light that had long been stuck at the threshold. Then, let us start there. I want to hear your truth, I declared, feeling the warmth of Jake close beside me as those words bridged the gap between us. With resolute clarity, I knew that it would be a long road ahead. But perhaps, just perhaps, we were ready to face the storm together, unearthing hidden truths and lost connections that would help us forge a new path toward healing. As the winds ebbed and the rain lightened, our voices intertwined, the sound of forgiveness brewing alongside the rumbling storm. Sitting together, amidst the chaos of our past and hopes for our future, I realized I was no longer just a part of my family's lost history. I was carving my own, and as I leaned back against Jake's sturdy presence, I finally understood, the journey to reclaiming my family was not solely about forgiveness, but also about learning to let love, real love, come pouring in like rain after a storm, cleansing everything in its path.